Thank you very much. You may be seated. Thank you. Thank you. Your Excellencies, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Ambassadors, senior officials, thank you so very much for attending this briefing at the conclusion of the official talks between South Africa and Germany. I will start off by inviting President Ramaphosa to deliver his remarks, thereafter followed by President Steinmeier. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Cyril. Your Excellency, President Frank Walter Steinmeier, together with members of your esteemed delegation, members of the media, and ladies and gentlemen, let me begin, Mr. President, by expressing my profound appreciation for the useful discussions that we have just concluded on South Africa's strategic relationship with Germany. We call it a very special relationship that has its roots in history. I also want to express my appreciation to you and to Chancellor Angela Merkel for the gracious hospitality that was extended to me during my recent visit to Germany to attend the G20 Africa Summit in Berlin. South Africa welcomes this opportunity during your visit. We see this visit as a renewal of the bonds that exist between our two countries at a political, trade, investment, but also importantly at a people-to-people level. It is 20 years since South Africa last hosted the President of the Federal Republic of Germany. President Steinmeier and I used this historic opportunity to discuss a number of issues of common interest between Germany and South Africa. And we also took time to brief each other on developments in our respective countries, as well as our respective regions. We agreed to continue our efforts to further extend trade and investment between South Africa and Germany. Germany, as we all know, is South Africa's third largest global trading partner and one of the largest foreign investors, with more than 600 companies from Germany operating in South Africa, and through their various business operations they sustain well more than 100,000 jobs. This provides a firm foundation to grow our economic relationship in line with our efforts to significantly increase investment in South Africa and as part of the various initiatives that we have embarked upon. As was evident from our engagement with German business leaders in Berlin last month, South Africa is seen as an important investment destination, and there is great interest among German companies to expand their presence here. I was particularly pleased to President, you brought together with you a business delegation from German companies, those who are already invested in our country, and some who are thinking of investing in South Africa. So this pleases us a great deal because through your visit we are able to showcase the opportunities that South Africa has for a number of German companies. We also use the opportunity, as we did today when I visited Germany, to express our appreciation for the significant role that German companies continue to play in developing skills and in building capacity. And it is in skills development that Germany has a lot that it can extend in the form of experience as well as example and models to South Africa. Your dual learning system is one that I have found most attractive, and we as South Africa are looking at it very closely, because being able to transit young people from the theoretical learning process and supported by the practical learning process is one of those things that can assist our education system a great deal and the skills acquisition. By developing skills through this vocational training, German companies are helping to empower South Africa's young people. We also use this opportunity to thank the German government for the technical and financial support it has provided to South Africa in areas such as health, education, skills development, and renewable energy. Our discussions today also covered areas of cooperation on regional as well as global issues. We applauded Germany's role in promoting the G20 Compact with Africa, which aims to mobilize private sector investment in participating African countries. This initiative represents an opportunity to drive development through greater and more sustainable investment. Since both our countries have been elected to become non-permanent members on the UN Security Council, we have agreed that South Africa and Germany will work together to promote global peace and security, but also to promote multilateralism and strengthen the multilateral system. We are particularly interested in achieving the African Union goal of silencing the guns on the continent by 2020, and welcome Germany's contribution to the continent's own efforts to advance peace and stability. Once again, I wish to thank President Steinmeier for visiting South Africa and for renewing these wonderful bonds that have always existed between Germany and South Africa. So therefore, your visit is a renewal process, and we look forward to increased and strengthened dealings and a relationship that's based on advancing each other's interests. So thank you very much for coming, President.
Thank you very much. May I...
It's not a cell phone? No, he wasn't giving me a cell phone. It's because I only understand German on Thursday, so today being Tuesday, I have to wear this. So sorry about that.
Which one?
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your kind words. Sehr verehrter Herr Präsident Ramaphosa, herzlichen Dank für die freundliche Begrüßung, die uns hier widerfahren ist. Und wie eng die Freundschaft zwischen unseren beiden Völkern ist, mag man auch daran sehen, dass wir Ihnen bei Ihrem kürzlichen Besuch in Berlin Wetter angeboten haben, das Sie eher in Südafrika gewohnt sind, und wir heute ein Wetter in Kapstadt erleben dürfen, das eher dem unseren in Deutschland entspricht. Aber ich weiß natürlich sehr genau, und wir haben eben auch darüber gesprochen, Herr Präsident.
We just talked about this, Mr. President. I very well know how much you waited for rain and water in South Africa in this past year. Mr. President, I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted and happy to be back, and I can say this on behalf of all of the members of my delegation. We are visiting South Africa in a time where interest in South Africa is, awakening again. We in Germany, following closely the new developments in South Africa with great interest, with great respect and great recognition. We follow your new policies with strength, your efforts to strengthen the independence of the judiciary by creating transparency, and also when it comes to fighting corruption. We follow very closely the efforts of the governmental institutions, efforts to what is called state capture in South Africa. I believe it is a very important signal to the international community. It is a signal that is perceived, that is seen in Germany, and I believe it is the right point in time for me to return to South Africa. You pointed out the fact that it took 20 years for a German federal president to return on a state visit to South Africa, and it is now the right point in time to do so in order to work towards renewing relations between our two peoples, in order to renew the bonds between Germany and South Africa, to create this new departure and renew our relations and our bonds. Mr. President, we had time in order to talk about the differences between our two countries in our talks just beforehand, but we also talked about what we have in common, and we talked about the similarities. We were able to talk about the years back in 1990 and realized that they were just as crucial for the modern history of your country as it was for my country. And you are currently remembering and celebrating the 100th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's birth, and 1990 was the year when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, and the early 1990s marked the years of German reunification. And this posed tasks and challenges that had to be tackled, and we have the similarities in common that we're faced with tremendous expectations of the people and the government, and as a state you had to deal with these expectations. And this is a task that you're fully aware of. You confront this challenge and task just as the institutions and government in Germany did. It is a time, 1990 and the early 1990s, were a time where a lot was happening, if you will, in both of our countries, and where history took a turn for the better. And of course, you have to realize this in your day-to-day challenges that we have to confront, and you have to bear that in mind and remind yourself of these facts. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to be back in South Africa, and I'm pleased to have this opportunity to talk and meet President Ramaphosa and exchange views. The opportunity that I had this morning with him and parts of his parliament and cabinet. Of course, we discussed challenges that we all need to confront. We talked about Western democracies feeling under pressure by a rising and new nationalism that we see in Africa, just as we see this rising nationalism in Europe and beyond Europe, indeed, this new nationalism that we have to deal with. And we also talked about this in our meeting as to how we deal with the centrifugal forces in our societies, the divisions in our societies, what that means for politics and policymakers, what we need to offer to the people. And we both agreed that we should make good use of the institutions that were created in the past in order to foster this exchange, and we need to continue to use the institutions. This binational commission by no means is new, but we did not sufficiently use and make use of this institution to address the pressing issues for both countries and to actually exchange views on the pressing and urgent issues within the framework of the Binational Commission. And President Ramaphosa also formulated expectations he has with regards to partnership with Germany. Of course, there is a pressing wish in South Africa that we share our positive experience with our in the field of education and in the field of dual education, and he expressed the wish that we should be more present here in South Africa. Some individual companies present in South Africa already are doing this, but South Africa wishes to place this on a more broad footing as it was in the past. More than 400 and 500 German companies are represented in South Africa. In the past, you mentioned it, Mr. President, about 100,000 jobs were created. But this good basis, this good foundation could be exploited and used even better in the future in order to promote the system of vocational and dual training in South Africa. I believe one experience that you've had in South Africa is the following. German companies, who's sometimes a bit slow when it comes to investment in the beginning, but once this decision to invest in South Africa they're here to stay. They invest in a sustainable manner. They're not in for the quick money. That means that they do not only invest in a location, in a business, but they have a very intrinsic interest in training the skills of their employees. And this is why, Mr. President, I take this home with me as a request, and we're going to explore our opportunities and to get German companies interested in South Africa as a location to do business and encourage them to have the courage to actually invest in South Africa and actually factor South Africa into their projects for the future. You also referred to the delegation. You welcomed my delegation. Indeed, we have experienced entrepreneurs on this delegation, experienced entrepreneurs who have invested in South Africa. Some are actually exploring opportunities. They're looking what's happening in South Africa. Is the investment climate conducive? Is the investment climate getting better? And a part of my delegation also consists of representatives of members of the cultural scene in Germany. You could see for yourself, and we did not only bring Germans on this delegation, but actually successful members of our delegation who were born in South Africa. And this is also to illustrate the closeness of bonds and to show how close our relations are, and that we have a very good foundation by people-to-people contact between Germany and South Africa, which should actually enable us to work even closer together as it was the case in the past. Mr. President, you mentioned that the Binational Commission is going to gather again in 2019, but 2019 is also the year where we're going to meet in the big international foray. Germany and South Africa will both be members of the Security Council of the United Nations, and let me reiterate, and I said it in our meeting beforehand as well, I believe it will depend a lot on us in times where international order is under pressure. Dedicated and convinced multilateralists, those countries which are convinced that we need to retain and protect and defend this international order are very important. So many have high hopes and expectations when it comes to our work in the Security Council of the United Nations. I'm very grateful for your remarks and what you said about a German and European commitment towards Africa. In our meeting, I just emphasized just how much the work of the African institutions, in particular the African Union, has evolved, and we're seeing that the African Union has become even more professional, and I could witness this development myself in my time as foreign minister and now as federal president, and I'm glad that we could exchange views on the situation here in Africa, but that you also shared your expertise and your know-how and shed light on the situation of the situation in southern Africa and your neighboring country, Zimbabwe. I'm very grateful that we had the opportunity to talk, and I look forward to continuing our meeting over lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Vielen Dank, Ihre Exzellenzen, meine Damen und Herren. Ich werde eine Runde der Fragen zulassen. Jetzt eine Frage von Seiten der deutschen Medien und dann eine weitere Frage von den südafrikanischen Medien. Je nach Zeit können wir dann noch eine zweite Fragerunde starten.
You'll follow, but let's alone. Thank you, sir. Please introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Matthias Gebauer, working with the German magazine Der Spiegel. President Ramaphosa, one question for you first. You were talking about investments you're looking for and an increase of investments. So my question would be, for possible investors, how do you want to regain the trust which was lost about how secure their investments are in South Africa? So what is your plan for the next couple of months and years to regain that trust? Und Herr Bundespräsident, eine Frage an Sie. Sie haben auch über die Reformen gesprochen, die Sie ganz offensichtlich sehr beeindruckt haben. Meine Frage deswegen, wie kann Deutschland diese Reformen unterstützen? Haben Sie heute schon vielleicht ein bisschen was vereinbart, was möglicherweise den Weg in die Zukunft erheben kann?
Thank you, sir. Mr. President.
Well, thank you very much. We have embarked on what I call a journey of renewal, renewing how we do things in South Africa, renewing what we do, to reinstill the confidence that our own people have in their own country, in their government, but also instilling confidence in what other people from outside the country should have in us as South Africa. But more particularly for investors. Investors, both local and international, as they look at South Africa, they must see that South Africa is indeed a very good destination for investment. And how are we increasing that confidence? We have embarked on a process of creating more certainty in our economy in terms of our laws, our policies, our regulations, and also how we do things in terms of opening up the country for more investment. So we're creating a much more investment conducive country. But we're also saying through our laws, we are also inviting investors to come because we will protect those investors. Our country is based on the rule of law. We do not do things on an arbitrary basis against anyone, least of all against our own people. There's a good rule of law in our country. We've got strong institutions that don't only protect, say, investors, but also protect the people of our country. And people of our country are able to resort to institutions, including courts, and take on anyone, including their own government, and hope to win. And quite often they win. because that is the type of system that we have created, an open, transparent system. Now, in this period of renewal, that is precisely what we are laying emphasis on. That South Africa is a country that has openness and transparency, that operates on the basis of rule of law, adherence to our constitution, and even as we are dealing with some of the most challenging and intricate problems that emanate from our past, like the land question. The land reform process is being conducted in the most judicious and proper manner by going through our structures. Parliament is one of those structures. It is going through that. It is being debated by the representatives of the people of South Africa. And as we debate it, we are going to find solutions. Solutions that are going to ensure that there is respect for property rights for all the people of South Africa, and that property rights are secure for all the people of this country, and that as we secure those rights, we also unlock the utility and in South Africa to grow our economy, to expand economic activity that will include all the people of South Africa. And we have said, one, there will be no land grabs. And we have also said, investors who invest in our economy should have no fear that as they invest, their investments are going to be grabbed. We are not wired like that. We cannot invite people to come and invest in our country and then thereafter take their investments. It is akin to saying you invite a guest into your home, and having invited them into your home, you then rob them of their possessions. We don't do that. So investors should know that their investments will be secured by our laws, will be secured by our various conventions we have. And for that reason, we are, as we are being open in terms of the processes that we are involved in, people are listening to us, both in South Africa, in Europe, in the United States. They hear our message very clearly, that we will not be seeking to take the investments of those who invest in our country. What we are saying is that we are involved in a process of reforming the land process in South Africa so that we can have more stability. The more stability we have in South Africa, the more everybody's interest is safeguarded, including everybody's investments. So that is the journey that we have embarked upon.
Herr Gebauer, auf Ihre zweite Frage. Das, was hier stattfindet, ist ja nicht weniger als ein Aufbruch. Und diesen Aufbruch spürt man. Das sage ich auch mit Blick auf meine Erinnerungen an die Jugendlichen in den vergangenen Jahren.
In light of my memories during my last visits in the past years, where we've seen a situation marked by economic uncertainty, a situation where growth was in decline, credit ratings were downgraded, and investors actually declined, investors' activities declined. And during this visit, I can feel, and this holds true for the meetings we had in Berlin as well, I see that things are changing. The atmosphere here, also among interlocutors that are not in politics, everyone tells me that the atmosphere is marked by hope and a new departure, and people aren't, there's no sense of resignation. And this encourages me, and this is why I'm delighted that President Ramaphosa not only announced a new dawn, but he also actually proposed very tangible and concrete policies by which in the coming 5 years new jobs will be created also by way of public investment, accompanied by the call that a transformation correction also needs time, and the time of the coming years needs to be used in order to regain confidence and trust that was lost in the past years.
Wenn Sie danach fragen, was das bedeutet für deutsche Unternehmen,
when asking what this means for German companies, then I can tell you it's not just about atmospheric things, the atmosphere or the mere belief that things are going to change. But with South Africa, we have a country that has excellent infrastructure, and the members of the delegation could see for themselves during this trip. There is a legal judiciary, a legal with an independent justice, an independent judiciary that doesn't shy away from being courageous in the fight against corruption and also indict members of the political establishment. Now, what can Germany do? The areas are clear. I touched upon one area myself when I mentioned promoting the dual vocational training. South Africa is interested in promoting vocational training, and the President pointed out in our meeting that there is a need and that there are also expectations that cooperation in the field of the healthcare sector become more close, and we also cooperate closely in the field of climate, protection of the climate. In the end, let me reiterate the call and the appeal to you that we make better use of the instruments that we created in the past. For instance, the Binational Commission, that we make use of these instruments in order to incrementally, step by step, explore avenues of cooperation and explore opportunities to cooperate in these fields. And we both agree that there is much more that we can do than we did in the past. The potential for cooperation is much larger than we did.
Thank you very much, Lester.
Thank you very much, President. President Steinmeier, just
Please
on...
introduce yourself.
Pardon me, I'll stand up. Thank you, Lester from ENC. President Steinmeier, the President had mentioned issues of land reform. Cape Town in particular has a very large German immigrant population. Did any constituents here raise issues with the German government on the land reform process? Also, you mentioned issues regarding state capture and the interest that it has garnered in Germany. Why is that the case? To President Ramaphosa, are you surprised at the international interest in the state capture investigation so far? And seeing that the Commission of Inquiry is still underway, how do you judge the process to be so far?
Your Excellencies, Mr. President.
Ja, was Ihre Frage zur Bekämpfung der Korruption angeht, meine Antwort ist fast selbsterklärend, und ich muss mich beziehen auf die ersten Fragen, die hier zu den Voraussetzungen deutscher Investments in anderen Staaten, in anderen Volkswirtschaften schon genannt worden sind. Wenn es überhaupt eine zentrale Kategorie für die Schaffung eines investmentfreundlichen Umfeldes gibt, dann ist es die Bekämpfung von Korruption. Da, wo Korruption herrscht, werden Sie immer wieder auf Schwierigkeiten stoßen, dass ausländische Investments tatsächlich stattfinden. Und ich sage das gerne auch mit Blick auf die
investments. And I like to also mention this in the light and against the backdrop of German investments. Especially since we in Germany place such great importance to this fact that the country and that a country is free of corruption, that the relationship between the business community and the state is free of corruption. This is why a German company will hardly be willing to invest in a country, in an economy that is marked by corruption.
Geradezu prägend ist. Und das, was hier jetzt im Augenblick stattfindet,
what we're seeing here, what's happening here in South Africa, the visible
in den ersten Fällen ja auch
and in the very first cases, successful fight against corruption, because perpetrators were punished. So what is happening right now cannot be underestimated. In referring to the question posed by Mr. Gebauer, it's a crucial contribution to restore trust and a crucial contribution to actually attracting foreign investors and make sure that foreign investors return. As regards land reform, I don't want to call it land reform, but of course after German reunification in the year 1990, we saw the necessity to dispossess land, to deal with the dispossessions that happened in the GDR and under Soviet rule. So we saw the necessity to create the necessary legal provisions in Germany in order to deal with the issue of dispossession, and we had this issue in Parliament. And property was given back, but the starting point was a different one in Germany. Unlike in South Africa, where we're talking about the redistribution of land, so the prerequisites and the preconditions were different in Germany, and the situation is different in South Africa.
No, I'm not surprised that the international community is focusing on the issue of state capture, because state capture is about how we deal with the issue of corruption. And this gives us an opportunity as South Africans to see how the world looks at us. They look at us as a country through a lens that says they would like to see things being done properly. And if through this lens that they look at us through, they find that there is corruption, there is malfeasance, there is dysfunctionality of government and various processes, and there's arbitrary rules that are applied, they will turn away from us. They will not invest in us. So the state capture issue is an opportunity that they are looking at to see the extent to which we are able to correct our ways, to get rid of tendencies and practices that were completely against the normal type of clean government that they would normally have expected. So this commission is almost a cleansing process. It's a cleansing process of all the bad things that have happened in our country, and we wish the Commission very well in its endeavors and in its work as it cleanses South Africa and brings to the fore the truth of what happened in the past. This is what South Africans would like to see, and I guess the international community are also looking at this commission as doing precisely that. How is it going? It's going well. And as President, having appointed this commission, I wish them well and I await their report so that we can act on the recommendations that they will come up with. So let us allow this process of the commission to continue until the report comes forward. So I'm not able to give a view at the moment because the work is still underway. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. If we may rise for the departure of the presidents. Thank you once again, President Steinmeier, President Ramaphosa.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Handshake.
Oh, yeah.
Sit down. Oh, yes. Thank you very much, President. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this briefing. Is there an entrance? I need to run.